Jin did something on stage that caught Jungkook completely off guard, and the way Jungkook reacted made the entire moment impossible to ignore. Flushed face fire. At first, it looked like just another playful moment between the two. But then Jin suddenly made a move that changed the energy completely. Jungkook's expression says it all. He clearly wasn't expecting this from Jin. Face with tears of joy. And just when you think you know what happened, there's one tiny detail in the moment that makes their reaction even funnier. So, what exactly did Jin do to Jungkook? Stay until the end, because the final reaction is the part ARMY couldn't stop talking about. Eyes, purple heart. The moment looked simple at first, almost like another playful interaction between Jin and Jungkook during concert. But when you look closely, there is much more happening in those few seconds than most people notice. Jin and Jungkook were already sharing the stage when Jin suddenly turned his attention toward Jungkook. Nothing about the moment seemed serious. The atmosphere was relaxed, the crowd was watching, and Jungkook appeared to be enjoying himself. Then Jin made his unexpected move. For a split second, Jungkook seemed to realize exactly what Jin was about to do. His expression changed, and that reaction immediately made the moment stand out. It was not a dramatic reaction.
It was much more natural than that.
Jungkook simply looked like someone who had been caught completely off guard by a person he knew would probably do something unpredictable. And that is what makes this interaction so entertaining. Because when Jin is around Jungkook, there always seems to be an extra layer of playfulness. Even in the middle of a huge performance, surrounded by thousands of fans, the two can suddenly forget about everything around them and turn a few seconds into their own little moment. But this time, Jin appeared to take the joke one step further. The first thing that catches your attention is Jin's posture. He is clearly focused on Jungkook, while Jungkook seems to be waiting to see what Jin is going to do next. Their body language creates a strange little pause in the middle of the performance. It almost feels like Jungkook knows something is coming. And then comes the moment everyone notices. Jin makes the move, and Jungkook's reaction instantly changes the entire atmosphere. Instead of looking annoyed or uncomfortable, Jungkook breaks into a huge smile. That smile is important because it tells us just how naturally the two can turn an ordinary stage moment into something completely unexpected. The crowd may have been watching the performance, but for those few seconds, Jin and Jungkook seemed completely focused on each other. And there is something especially funny about Jin's expression. He does not look like someone who is trying to create a serious moment. He looks completely committed to being playful. It is almost as if he knows exactly how Jungkook will react before he even does it. Jungkook, meanwhile, looks like he is trying to process what just happened. That contrast is what makes the scene so memorable. Jin appears calm and confident about what he has just done, while Jungkook is left reacting to it with that unmistakable smile. But there is another detail that makes this moment even more interesting. Look at how quickly the mood between them changes. 1 second they are simply standing together on stage. The next, they are sharing a moment that feels much more spontaneous than anything planned for the performance. That spontaneity is exactly why fans tend to love moments like this. Concerts are carefully prepared. Performances have rehearsals, choreography, lighting, camera positions, and timing. Yet, sometimes the moments fans remember most are not the perfectly rehearsed parts. They are the moments that happen naturally. And this interaction feels like one of those moments. Jin's playful behavior creates an opening, and Jungkook's reaction becomes the real highlight. You can almost imagine Jungkook thinking that Jin is never going to let him have a completely normal moment on stage. But what happened next makes the interaction even more entertaining. Instead of immediately moving away, the energy between them continues. Jungkook keeps smiling, and Jin remains completely composed, as if nothing unusual just happened. That is classic Jin. He can create chaos in a single moment and then act as though everything is perfectly normal. And Jungkook seems to know exactly how to respond to that kind of personality. Rather than becoming serious, he plays along with the situation. That is why the interaction feels so natural. There is no need for a dramatic reaction. There is no need for a long exchange. A simple gesture, a look, and a smile are enough to make the moment memorable. But if you only watch the clip once, you might miss the most interesting part. The real highlight is not simply what Jin did. It is how quickly Jungkook understood the joke. His reaction happens almost immediately, which suggests that he was completely familiar with Jin's playful behavior. It feels less like a surprise coming from a stranger, and more like the reaction of someone who already knows exactly what Jin is capable of. And that is what makes their dynamic so entertaining to watch. Jin does something unexpected. Jungkook reacts. Then Jin seems to enjoy Jungkook's reaction even more. It becomes a small cycle of teasing and reacting, all happening in just a few seconds. For the audience, it is funny. For fans who have followed their interactions over the years, it feels familiar. There is a certain comfort in seeing them behave this naturally with each other. They do not need to force the moment. And that is probably why this particular scene stands out so much. Jungkook's smile is not the kind of reaction you would expect from someone who is genuinely upset. Instead, it looks like he is trying not to laugh at what Jin has just done. That tiny expression changes the entire interpretation of the moment. What could have looked like a random stage movement suddenly becomes another example of their playful chemistry. But there is still one question. Why did Jin choose that exact moment to do it? Was he simply being playful? Was he reacting to Jungkook? Or did he already know that Jungkook would give him the exact reaction he wanted? We cannot know what was going through their minds in that moment, and that is part of what makes the clip so fun to watch. Fans can see the interaction, but the meaning behind those tiny expressions is left open to interpretation. And perhaps that is why moments like this spread so quickly among ARMY. They give fans something to replay, something to pause, something to look at from another angle. Because the longer you watch the moment, the more you notice the little details. Jin's attention is clearly directed toward Jungkook. Jungkook notices him. Then the unexpected move happens. And almost immediately, Jungkook's face gives away his reaction. It is the kind of moment that does not need a complicated explanation. The expressions say enough. There is also something refreshing about seeing this side of them during a major performance. They may be on one of the biggest stages in the world, but they can still behave like two people simply enjoying a joke between friends. The size of the venue disappears for a moment. The cameras disappear. The thousands of people watching disappear. And all that remains is Jin teasing Jungkook and Jungkook trying to react without completely losing it. That is what makes the moment feel personal despite happening in front of a massive audience. And then comes the part that makes the entire interaction even more satisfying. Jungkook does not respond with anger. He does not pull away dramatically. Instead, he smiles. That smile becomes the unexpected payoff. Because Jin's move may have started the moment, but Jungkook's reaction is what makes people want to watch it again. It is almost as though Jin successfully got exactly the reaction he wanted. And if that was the goal, then Jin absolutely succeeded. The funniest part is that Jin does not even need to say anything. His actions are enough. Jungkook's reaction is enough. The entire exchange plays out through body language. This is why the smallest interactions between BTS members can sometimes become the most memorable. They do not always need a huge announcement or a dramatic event. Sometimes, one unexpected move is enough. And in this case, Jin's decision to tease Jungkook created exactly that kind of moment. It also reminds fans why the relationship between these two remains so entertaining. Jin often brings a mischievous energy into situations where Jungkook least expects it. Jungkook, on the other hand, has a way of reacting that makes Jin's teasing even funnier. It is almost a perfect combination. One creates the chaos, the other gives the reaction, and the audience gets to enjoy both. Looking back at the moment, it becomes clear that the most memorable part was never really the move itself. It was the reaction that followed. Jin made his move. Jungkook noticed. The surprise lasted only a moment. Then that smile appeared. And suddenly, the entire interaction became something fans could not stop watching. There is something incredibly charming about how quickly Jungkook's expression gives everything away. He may have been caught off guard, but he clearly understood the playful energy behind it. That is why the moment feels funny rather than uncomfortable. It feels like a spontaneous interaction between two people who know each other well enough to understand exactly where the joke is going. The first time you watch it, you notice what Jin does. The second time, you notice Jungkook's reaction. And the third time, you start paying attention to everything happening around them. The timing, the expressions, the body language, the way Jin looks at Jungkook, the way Jungkook responds. All of those tiny details come together to create a moment that feels much bigger than the few seconds it actually lasted. And that is what makes this interaction so special. It was not planned to become a huge moment for fans. It was not a dramatic announcement. It was not a major part of the performance. It was simply Jin being Jin and Jungkook reacting in the most Jungkook way possible. Yet somehow, those few seconds were enough to steal attention. And when you think about it, that might be the most entertaining part of all. Jin did not need to do much. One unexpected move was enough to catch Jungkook off guard. One reaction was enough to make the audience laugh. And one smile was enough to turn an ordinary stage moment into something fans would remember. So when people say that the funniest BTS moments can happen when nobody expects them, this is exactly the kind of interaction they mean. Because sometimes the best moments are not the ones written into the schedule. They are the ones that happen naturally between the members. And this moment between Jin and Jungkook is a perfect example. Jin created the surprise. Jungkook delivered the reaction. And together, they created a moment that was impossible not to notice. No matter how massive the stage is, no matter how many people are watching, Jin can still find a way to make Jungkook laugh. And Jungkook can still turn Jin's smallest joke into a reaction that fans want to replay again and again. That is the beauty of their dynamic. It does not need to be complicated. It does not need to be explained. Sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected move from Jin and one priceless reaction from Jungkook. And that is exactly why this moment deserves another look. Because if you only noticed what Jin did, you may have missed the best part. Jungkook's reaction was the real story. And once you see that smile, it becomes almost impossible not to understand why ARMY found the moment so entertaining. One small interaction, two familiar personalities, one completely unexpected reaction, and a stage moment that somehow became much more memorable than anyone could have expected.